Nedum, we heard Rob Palmer talk about Ten Hag's body language on the touchline. And, of course, managers can play up to the cameras. What did you make of his reaction or lack of it when you found when he found United very much on the back foot?
I think, to be honest, for him, usually, if he had a good squad available, he'd be turning around towards the bench and thinking, well, this is the person I'm going to bring on to be able to do this. But I think they were filling quite a few seats on that bench with people who were essentially just available. He didn't have enough people to be coming on to probably take off the people who he thinks deserve to be taken off. And that feeling there as a manager on the side of, like, helplessness. Yes, like, we can look at his reign in totality, but as he's standing there, I think he would be disgusted by that performance. But again, the more senior players that he has available are all on the field. He'd be hoping that they'd be able to sort of stem the flow that Coventry had and just find a way to get through the game in those key moments. And for him, as I say, he can talk to them, but is that going to change anything? He could try and look on the bench to change something. Are we going to bring on an 18-year-old or 19-year-old to replace someone senior? It's probably the last thing that this moment needed. So I think that was a picture of a man that is essentially helpless and thinking to himself, like, what, unfortunately, in my opinion, what have I signed up for? Because this is nothing that he's probably ever expected to see.
He, of course, spoke in his press conference ahead of this, saying, look at my squad over the 100-plus games that I've been in charge here. I think I've had a full squad once to choose from. Does that offer him up any sort of excuses? No. As Nedum says, when you're looking at the bench and there's just nothing, you can't go for anything there.
No, they're playing Coventry City here in the Championship. I'm not offering up any excuses for this man. It's far from ideal, but show me a manager who's always got a full squad and I'll show you a liar. You know what I mean? It's part and parcel of the game. Again, they're playing a Championship side, being dominated by a Championship side, hanging on for long periods. This is just unacceptable. Yes, they're in a cup final. He's a dead man walking in this job. Yeah. Dead. You don't spend 1.25 billion plus to see this garbage. You don't. You don't spend that to see a manager standing with his hands in his pockets, literally doing nothing. When Coventry got it back to 3-1, right, who, by the way, they made a change at half-time in terms of going from a back five to a back four, which is more in line with what they do in the Championship, and they were much better. But when they get it to 3-1 back, after United scored against the run of play, which the Fernandes goal was, somebody has to put their foot on the ball with a red jersey and say, you're barely going to have another sniff of this football. Never mind near our box. You just completely throttle this team that don't have as good of players, that don't have the quality, that are not used to playing in big stadiums like this at Wembley in a semi-final, and you just suffocate the life out of them. No, it's exactly the opposite happened. They're open and they allow this team to look like... If you were watching this game from 45 minutes onwards and you just flicked the old channel on and went, oh, bit of soccer game on here, and I mean this, you would not have known there's one of the biggest clubs in the world who spend a fortune with a manager who has a reputation that's got him this job from Ajax, Ten Hag, and all these players. You would not have known that one team was spending millions and millions and the other side were almost out of business a few years ago and scrapping away in the Championship. Now, if that doesn't tell you... And by the way, United have won this game.
Yeah,
they're in the final. But if that doesn't tell you where they are as a club, and it's not an isolated incident. This is not anything isolated. We're looking at a bigger picture here. This is knockout football. Anything can happen, right? It's not how you gauge the long-term vision. And we're looking at a bigger picture here from a Manchester United perspective. That's unsustainable. You've heard me say that in the show many, many times, the FC show. This is unsustainable. To continue to be dominated by the weaker teams in English football is unsustainable as a long-term vision. And that is the problem that Ten Hag has.